might be time to bring in Mr. Mark Watson, to get his view on that remarkable event yesterday. Mark, I know you're up there in Samoa doing a bit of ocean swimming yourself, but let's go to that race yesterday, to what I think, for me, probably was the pivotal moment in that event last night. And that was the moment when Hayden Wilde decided to go just 2 kilometres into a 10K race, and knowing that he had one of the fastest ever triathlon 10K runners behind him who could probably run him down at any stage at any time, but he was going to have a go, and he did, and he didn't quite pull it off. Do you think, in hindsight, Watto, that Hayden Wilde went too early in that 10K race run?
Oh, look, we spoke yesterday, didn't we, Brendan, prior to the race, and I felt that he needed to change the game plan. He'd been beaten by Alex Yee a number of times where they would just run together side by side, and he'd ultimately get out kicked. I didn't think he'd go that early, but I thought that we might see him just trying to, see if he could mix it up, take Yee and go, oh, I wasn't expecting that, and put maybe just a little bit of doubt in his head. I think it's really easy to be wise after the fact. Clearly they had a strategy. I mean, you're still trying to find your legs coming off the bike at the 2K mark. I'm not sure you've still got the bike and the legs, and you're still feeling a little bit like you got sort of slightly rubber legs. And so perhaps he, decided that was the time to go. You get out to a 14-second lead. A lot of athletes are going to go, okay, out of sight, out of mind. I remember always Erin Baker saying when she went up against Paula Newby-Fraser and you had that great rivalry, she said at some point someone will say second is good enough. And what I like about Hayden is just he took that race, and I think you might have mentioned it, taken that race by the scruff of the neck. Here's a guy who just went out. He took his chance. It ultimately didn't pay off in the finish, but look, I think he did everything right. I think he tactically brilliant in terms of, taking it to Alex Yee and for much of that having, I guess, New Zealand believing that we're about to witness the Hamish Carter moment, but it wasn't to be, and that's all credit to Alex Yee. You've got the two best 10K runners that the sport has ever seen, and you probably put Alistair Brownlee, the two-time Olympic champion, in that mix as well. But I mean, these guys have just taken the running to another level. It's just remarkable what they're doing.
Yes, exactly. I mean, when you look at Yee's record as a runner, he ran for Great Britain at the European Track and Field Championships, and at the age of 20 was running 27:50 for 10Ks as an athlete. Now, the New Zealand 10-kilometre record for men for many decades was 27:45, set by Dick Quacks way back when, and it's only been lowered in recent years. So for this guy to be able to run 27:50, okay, he doesn't run that many anymore, clearly, but this must have been nonetheless in Hayden's mind that I'm throwing the gauntlet down here, and I'm saying to this guy, if you want the gold medal, you're going to have to beat me, and I know you're probably quicker than me over 10Ks, but I can still hang on here. And I thought for much of the remainder of the 8Ks, he did look fresh, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He looked remarkable. But look, as I said, I mean, hitting them at 2K in hindsight was probably the best thing to do, because I think if he had have just settled into a pace there and said, look, I'll try and maybe surge at 7K, I think Yee would have well and truly had his legs going. I think he truly would have been in that 27:50 space that you've sort of mentioned in regards to his running ability. But Hayden Wilde, I said to you yesterday, it wasn't that long ago that this guy ran 13:23 for 5K. Now, the qualification for the Olympics is for 5,000 metres is 13:20. Dick Quacks's world record he set in 1977 was 13:13. Adrian Blinko lowered it to, sort of 13:10, and I think it's been Geordie Beamish, I think, might have taken it down even lower. But this is the calibre of these guys. They're great runners in their own right. And unfortunately for Hayden Wilde, he's come along in a time and an era, a little bit like Erica Fairweather, where you think, oh, no one surely can go better than Alistair Brownlee can when he won in 2:12 and 2:16. And suddenly Hayden Wilde sort of says, well, I think I can sort of certainly match it. And then you get this guy, Alex Yee, that comes along and takes it even to that next level. So, I mean, it's a wonderful rivalry. Look, you do hope that in 4 years' time, Hayden, 4 years, four more years of hard work, 4 more years of layers. He said he does want to come back, that, he can can add the gold medal to the bronze and the silver that he has won. But look, just what a wonderful, wonderful event it was. Just a wonderful showcase for the sport, but just wonderful, wasn't it? As you said, I mean, as New Zealanders with our history, when you go right back to the Lovelocks and the and the Halbergs and the Snells, the Walkers, and all of those great runners of that era and more recent times than Nick Willis, there's still nothing more pleasing to see New Zealanders running in some form in the black singlet and the silver furnace. So I can use that as sort of a metaphor.
Well, running also at the top of a gold medal race, which is very rare. I mean, I can think of them on one hand, the instances from the past. John Walker in 1976 in the 1,500 metres final. Okay, there were no Africans there and no Bai. And the legendary go early tactic of Arthur Lydiard's with Murray Halberg at Rome in 1960, when with 3.5 laps left in the 5,000 metres, their plan was, and Halberg was to go then, and he did, on the basis of the training from Arthur Lydiard. And so it's very rare for a New Zealander to be at the head of a big-time Olympic or World Championship final and to be able to take it all the way to the tape. And, I mean, in fairness to Yee, it was a great performance on his part. A couple of things about him. You noticed, I'm pretty sure of this, he never had Wilde out of his sight, even though he was trailing him by 150 metres at one stage there. Yeah. He could, and I think that's important. When you can see the guy in front of you, it's easier to catch him, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I remember talking to Chris Pallone, who coached Hamish Carter in 2004, and what a moment that was, as you were privy to. And I always remember Chris saying the athlete that wins this is the athlete who decelerates the least over that last 3 kilometres. And this wasn't so much a case of Alex Yee going, well, I need to pick it up over the last 3K. This was more a case of Hayden Wilde just starting to slow up. It was no different to what, you go back to Dick Taylor 1974 and they went out at world record pace, Black and Bedford. And I think Lydiard said at the time, look, they're going to go at world record pace, but it's going to be 30 degrees, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They'll either smash the world record or they'll come back. And he just said to Dick Taylor, sit on that pace line. Do not move from that pace line. Be patient. And then, you saw Dick Taylor in the second half of that race pull those guys back because they started to slow up. And it was a very similar case like that for Alex Yee. I guarantee if you look at his splits throughout that 10 kilometres, I'd imagine they were fairly even all the way through. Where I think if you look at Hayden, they were even. Then he obviously put the hammer down and then clearly was in a steady state. And then towards the end, I think you'd just see the deceleration through the sheer level of fatigue.
I tell you who Yee reminds me of. It's uncanny. He's got the build of Sebastian Coe, and he runs like Sebastian Coe, very light on his feet. He bounces even over the cobblestones, he's always going to be almost an impossible guy to beat. I don't know what other tactic you can employ here, unless you get a sprint coach added to your team and you spend your summer increasing your speed. But it was.
I mean, the only thing I'd like to see, Brendan, is much harder bike courses. I'd like to see,
but a few hills,
like in Athens, where genuinely it was one on the bike, because I know how good Hayden Wilde is as a cyclist. I think it was 2019. I was commentating the New Zealand Road Cycling Nationals down in Waikato, and Shane Archibald won that day, and it was, I'm just trying to think, and it was a hell of a race anyway. And this thing just got everyone just got blown across the road. It was just absolute obliteration. It was like someone had thrown a hand grenade into the middle of the peloton. It was George Bennett, and George Bennett, it was just one of the gutsiest things I've ever seen. And this had all our World Tour riders, all our Continental Tour riders in it, Pro Tour riders all riding. And then there was a small group that finished behind Archibald and stuff. And the one rider sitting in that group ahead of so many of them was Hayden Wilde. It was one of the great performances I'd seen. And I was the only one that noticed it because I was aware of who he was. And I just said to me that day, this guy's not just a good bloody runner. This guy's a hell of a bike rider as well. But the problem with the sports these days, and a lot of these courses, London was the same. It's just a bit of a pedestrian type race. I'm not sure it's testing the best cyclist across the 3 disciplines. And I'd like to see the athlete that winning being the best swimmer, the best biker, and the best runner, where often a lot of these events just end up becoming a little bit of a swim run type race.
For sure, and that was a possibility yesterday as well. But the other thing that really impressed me about Wilde was his post-race behaviour. First of all, sitting down and putting his arms around his great mate, Alex Yee. And I'm not sure whether the IOC still do this award, but some years ago they used to make an award at the end of the Olympic Games for the athlete who most epitomised Olympism in their performance, and I think you'd be hard pressed to find another image at these games that absolutely typifies that more than what we saw from Hayden Wilde. And then after that, he stood up and he did all of these media interviews. No excuses, no regrets, no tears, just joy and celebration that he and his mate had turned on a great race. And I thought, I take my hat off to this guy. He's a object lesson to a lot of New Zealand sportsmen how to deal both with victory and defeat.